Happy Tuesday, my friends, and it's a good day, and I hope it's a really one that you really get to enjoy today. Come on in, for just a moment, in my little world, and I brought some friends with me today. There's see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, and have no fun, and all. Bought those for my mother probably 50 years ago, and somehow I inherited them down the way. Anyhow, glad you're with me today. And I want you to think about 5 things today. Read somewhere that any good message only has one good point, but maybe there is only one point. I want you to remember 5 things today. So get your mind in gear. We'll think about 5 things in a moment. We've heard the story of David and Goliath in various forms over the years. We've used the analogy of it in a lot of circumstances, but something took place in the midst of that story. Something that maybe ought to give us some fuel for our own challenges that we meet each day. When the young man David was ready to take on the great warrior, the giant of a man, Goliath, when others weren't ready to do so. I want you to think about it a little bit today. For when David ultimately came to the point he was willing to do it, the king was going to allow him to do it. King Saul was actually going to allow him to do that. Says he tried on armor. That wasn't going to work for him. He had convinced the king that he could go and he could do this battle. And hey, what are they going to do to stop him? And the young man prepared to go out. In the 40th verse of 1 Samuel 17, that's where you find it. When he took his staff in his hand, says he chose for himself 5 smooth stones from the brook, and he put them in a shepherd's bag in a pouch which he had, and his sling was in his hand, and he drew near the Philistine. A lot of questions about why 5 stones. It only took one to bring down the giant. We know that. For when he let that stone fly, it hit the guy in the middle of his forehead, it appears, and he was done, and he went down. The skill of the young shepherd boy and his weapon of choice won the day. But I want you to think about something as he carried 4 more stones. Some have said because the giant had 4 brothers, 4 kinsmen, that maybe he was going to have to face in battle. I don't know. Regardless of David's reason for having 5, what does it mean to you and me? I want you to think about that just a little bit. Each stone smooth, each one prepared, each one ready for a sling, each one of a size and choice that made it a valuable weapon. I've kind of wondered when he reached into that pouch and pulled out that stone, which one did he pull out? Was it a particular one? Were they all a whole lot alike? Did they each carry similar weight? Maybe. Because each one he chose was a useful stone. But you're going to face your challenges today, or whatever day, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, whatever. Maybe you're facing some today. Maybe some of you are dealing with a virus today. Maybe you're dealing with losses and struggles. Maybe you're dealing with loneliness and depression. How are you going to face it? Well, if you find David coming to the battlefield, do you notice that he brings the supplies his father had sent with him? He deposits them in the proper place, and then he goes to the front lines of the battle where some of his brothers are engaged with the army, and he begins to question why people aren't jumping out there and what the king would do if somebody went out, jumped into the battle and beat the giant. And when his brother tries to stop him from his seemingly arrogant attitude, David said, "Is there not a cause?" And there's stone number 1. When you go into something and you're going to face it, there needs to be a cause. You're there for a purpose. You're there to accomplish something. You're there to get something done. It's worthy of the battle. Sometimes we engage in battles that we probably should never have entered because there was nothing to be won, no cause. It was just a personal matter and arrogance of sorts. Make sure there is a cause, something valuable to be won. And maybe the second stone could represent courage. Yes, David had it. He was ready to go. When his father sent him to the battlefront with the supplies, being the youngest of the sons, he went with enthusiasm. He went with desire. And when he stepped onto that battlefield, there seemed to be no hesitance in him at all. When he went towards that giant, when the giant of a man that loomed over him was there was no shrinking back in David. When he faced his brother, when he faced the king, when he stood and he could have taken all that armor to protect himself, not a chance. But he went with courage. A staff, no sword, a sling, and 5 smooth stones in his pouch. You're going to go and face a giant that way. It better be with a lot of courage in hand, and David was not shrinking back. He was going forward. And we learned something about David as well, as he was a young man of character. He loved his people. He loved his nation. And when he deals with the king and he says, listen, I've kept those sheep. I've protected them. I've stood strong. He was a young man of character. And you notice when his father sent him with a job to do, he did it exactly. Before he went about what he wanted to do, he did exactly what his father had him to do. When he went to the battlefield that day, he didn't come about with some sort of ulterior motives or try to be sneaky about it or try to get out of it in any way. And that goes along with the courage, but it was a matter of character. I said I would, and I will. I was given a job to do, and I'll do it. He told the king, let no man fear. He had character about him. He was going to be the best he could be on that day. And he went with confidence. He went with confidence. He told that giant, this day, you will be delivered into my hand. This day. There was a great deal of confidence in him. He knew what he was going to do. He had a plan of action to take, the 5 stones, the sling, the staff, the march into the field. Standing up against the giant, he was filled with confidence. I will win this day. Watch the teams as they come onto the court or onto the field and ready to play. They bounce, they flex their muscles, they get themselves going, they chant together, they march, they jump up and down because they're building within themselves that enthusiastic confidence that says, this day. And you find that again and again in the scriptures. This day. So this is the day the Lord has made. Now's the time to do it. David accepted it, and he went with confidence. He says, I'm going to win this day. But he really didn't go alone. While other soldiers shrank back, including his own brothers, even the king, who was a valiant warrior, wouldn't go onto the field against that giant. But David didn't go alone. No, there were not armor bearers with him. There was not a fleet of soldiers standing immediately around him or beside him. No, he didn't have a squadron with him. He didn't have guys to watch his six. He went alone that day in a sense, but he didn't really go alone. He said in verse 46, this day the Lord will deliver you into my hand. We need to understand and value how great the company of that is. Yes, we go in the company of so many who have gone before us, valiant, faithful people who stand in so many ways. Secular people as well who have, with courage, faced obstacles that were large. But people of great faith who have stood strong, and we can look to them, and they are there beside us. They too have faced their battles. Seeing we are encompassed by so great a company or cloud of witnesses, the writer of the book of Hebrews says. but the greatest company of all is the Lord. I think about the Apostle Paul in the latter days of his life, where it appears he is in Rome with very little company. And when others have been sent or departed to go to other places and works to do, he says, but the Lord is with me. He's preserved me, and he always will. You go in the company of the Lord. David knew who was with him that day. He knew the cause he was fighting for. He had courage about him. There was character in the young man that was going to serve him well throughout his years. And there was a confidence that extended within the company that went with him that day. 5 stones: cause, courage, character, confidence, and company. You take those into your battles today or any day, I don't think there's much way you can lose, no matter what the outcome may be. David and his 5 stones, you got yours too. Reach into your pouch and use them as needed today. Hey, it's a great Tuesday. Hope it's one that blesses your life. So go out there and get them today and enjoy it in a very positive way. And we'll talk about more very soon.